Today we're shining a light on some of the mistakes I made while designing Smarty Van 1.0. That's right, there's things I'm not all that proud of that I've been avoiding talking about, but that ends now. Today I'm sharing my 4 mobile smart home design principles. Because it turns out you can't develop design principles for 2.0 until you take a close look at some of the things you got wrong in 1.0. All right, let's get to work. Shar and I have been living and adventuring in our fully automated DIY smart van for over a year and a half, and it's been working out great. But there's a big difference between designing a mobile smart home that you will live in and designing one for someone else. So the design principles I'm talking about today are relative to the hardware and integration choices we're making for Sarah's van, Smarty Van 2.0. However, if I were to build another van for myself, I'd be using these exact same principles. We also can't design in a nerd vacuum, so I asked Sarah to share what she wants and needs from a mobile smart home so you hear directly from her as well. So whether you're a DIY van builder, a pro builder, or simply a home automation enthusiast, by the end of this video, perhaps you'll think a little differently about your design approach. And at a minimum, you'll have the knowledge to avoid the mistakes that I made. And if you stick around, I'll even show you how I'm writing with light using the 6-axis robot. It's hard to believe we can fit an entire home in such a tiny space. And for people like Shar and I and Sarah, a mobile smart home isn't just a box on wheels with a mattress in the back. But don't take it from me, I asked Sarah to share a little bit about her needs and desires for living in a mobile smart home. Here's Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I want a van because I want to go on adventures. I plan to travel by myself with my dog, my bulldog. I have a disability that makes it so that I have a very limited amount of energy to use each day. So some of the tools I use at home to help manage are, one, the layout of my house, having to walk a few extra steps or bend over for things that I use frequently, all uses energy. So I plan to do the same thing in the van, manage not my energy, but the energy of the vehicle. Automatically turn itself on and tune to a high idle if in the middle of the night my battery's dipping low. Something that I'm also thinking about in the smart features I want from a van is that I can be forgetful about things. Yeah, did I turn the water pump off? And so having it be a second level of like a gut check when I forget them, but I've already gotten into bed, being able to turn those off just on my phone is really helpful. Being able to do those things when I'm away from the van will save me energy and going back to the van, but also just I don't have to worry about forgetting as much.
Yeah, this isn't just a van for Sarah. This project is a reflection of the care and attention she's put into her home environment in an effort to make each day a little easier, to conserve her energy so that she could spend it exploring and adventuring. It's easy to dismiss mobile smart homes or smart homes in general as a nerdy hobby, and I admit I'm a nerd and this is my hobby. But we actually need to think very carefully about Sarah's needs in a smart van and the choices we make in the design and implementation so that we are actually making her life easier. The hardware and software choices we include form tools that she relies on every day. And if we can create reliable tools for Sarah, I think they will prove to be reliable choices for us as well. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing. Okay, I promised mistakes, and mistake number 1 inspired my first Smarty Van 2.0 design principle: design before you build. When I built Smarty Van 1.0, I thought I had a plan. I had electrical system diagrams, I had research, I had spreadsheets, but what I didn't have was a completed smart home automation system design. I was learning Home Assistant, learning ESP Home, and learning microcontrollers. So as I installed things, I kept improving ideas. And improving ideas while actively wiring a van is chaos. I squeezed components into spaces they barely fit, added controllers where there was room instead of where they belonged, and ran wires reactively instead of strategically. I hate to show it, but here's the automation section of our electrics bench. Everything works, but it's not elegant, and it's definitely not service friendly. You can't design and implement at the same time, at least not well. fully map the system before installation begins. Every device, every wire run, every power rail, every future expansion point. I like OmniGraffle to make diagrams, but whatever you use, plan for growth, because future you will have ideas that current you didn't think of. In 1.0, I modeled the entire physical build in detail. In 2.0, we're modeling the entire automation architecture the same way. So plan some more, then assume you didn't plan enough. The second design principle wasn't really inspired by a mistake as much as a shortcut that I took. Because I didn't pre-wire for sensors and controllers, I leaned heavily on wireless everything. Wireless LED controllers, wireless door sensors, even wireless leak detectors. And honestly, they work great. I love when the lights turn on automatically inside a cabinet. But wireless sensors come with invisible maintenance. Batteries. Eventually, every battery dies. Sometimes in an easy-to-reach cabinet door, and sometimes buried behind plumbing. And wireless devices like Zigbee sensors tend to deep sleep to conserve power, which means they don't always respond instantly. None of this is catastrophic, but for Sarah, even small friction matters. If a leak detector dies and she has to crawl under cabinetry to replace a coin cell, that's energy spent, energy she'd rather use exploring. So design principle number 2, default to hardwired. If it can be wired, wire it. Sensors, switches, controllers, and cameras. Pull power from the house battery system, eliminate coin cells, eliminate deep sleep lag, and eliminate maintenance tasks. Hardwiring takes more planning, but it removes future friction and eliminates lag. Win-win. Wi-Fi devices that run on house power? Fine. Battery-powered sensors as infrastructure? Not anymore. In 2.0, reliability and zero maintenance beats installation convenience. Okay, next up, power budget. When I built Smarty Van 1.0, I was excited just to make things work. I had a multimeter, a shunt, and a USB power meter. I knew power mattered, but once the system left my office floor and went into the van, I stopped really tracking it. I kept adding Wi-Fi controllers, wireless sensors, LED drivers, one more ESP, then another. And I didn't truly understand my baseline draw until everything was already installed. At that point, it was too late to rethink it. One way I compensated was brute force. We installed 990 amp hours of lithium and added a second alternator. Problem solved, well, sort of. But that's not design, that's insurance. Sarah's van is smaller, her battery bank is smaller, and that forces discipline. So design principle number 3, every watt must be justified. In 1.0, I built a big battery so I didn't have to think too hard. In 2.0, every device has to earn its place. And we're consolidating controllers so we don't have 5 microcontrollers doing one job each. We're reducing Wi-Fi radios, and we're using latching relays where it makes sense, because holding a coil energized 24/7 adds up. None of these changes are dramatic on their own, but baseline power is death by 1,000 cuts, and in a mobile system, baseline matters more than peak. So this time, we design with a meter in hand. Get a shunt, get a multimeter, measure everything. Because when you live off-grid, every watt is a vote for or against your freedom. Before we talk about my final design principle, I want to take a moment to say thank you to all new Smarty Van members. And a very special thanks to our top-tier Rhodes Scholars. Each of you are awesome. Your support means a lot to the channel. Also, stickers have been shipping out. And if you don't have yours yet, be sure to fill out the sticker request form. And if you're interested in how I'm doing this robot light writing technique, stick around to the end of the video for a quick sneak peek behind the scenes. Okay, on to design principle number 4. In our van, I used a lot of development boards. You know, those no-name relays and MOSFETs from Amazon and AliExpress? And to be fair, they all still work. But here's the issue. What happens in 5 years? Can I buy that exact same board? Can I get support? Will the pinouts match? Will I remember how I flashed it with my UART programmer? When you build for yourself and you're always there to tinker and fix it, that's fine. But when you're building something meant to last or something someone else will rely on, that standard changes. So my 4th design principle is design for repair. Consider choosing hardware you can replace from brands you can get a hold of with consistent SKUs and well-documented specs and hopefully long-term availability, so that if something happens, you can swap it, flash your config, and you're done. No redesign, no new entities in Home Assistant, and no re-architecting. Designing for repair also means accessible mounting, service loops in your wiring, logical labeling, and physical room to work. A smart system isn't smart if it can't be maintained. So in 2.0, we're combining all the lessons I've learned to build a smart van that has thoughtful design, is mostly hardwired, is power conscious, and can be easily serviced years from now. I know a lot more this time around, and I'm going to keep sharing everything I've learned to help you improve the hardware design and integration in your mobile smart home. Cut. Oh, you're still here. I guess maybe you stayed to see how I'm making my 6-axis robot write with light. Traditional light writing is done with long exposure photography. You basically leave the shutter open for a really long time and move a light source around, which accumulates on the sensor or film stock in whatever shape you draw. So I thought, I have a very precise, repeatable robot. Why don't I have it do the drawing? The catch, I want to see the motion of the robot. If I shoot a long exposure photo, the robot would just be a blur. I tried the time-lapse feature in my camera, but even with a slow shutter, the shutter has to close eventually so the image can be saved. And because the robot is continuously moving and drawing, we miss part of the writing and end up with dots. So instead, I opted to shoot video. The good part is that we see the robot do its thing. The bad part is that while we can see the light move, there's no trail. This is what it actually looks like in real time. So using VFX tools, I isolate the light and accumulate bright pixels over time. This is where we finally see our writing. I built a Python app with the help of Claude and the Opus model to use the robot manufacturer's SDK to process a list of names or vector artwork and cue those commands on the robot controller. Our app even pre-visualizes both in 3D robot space and a camera view. We developed a bunch of parameters that allow me to set up the canvas size, speeds, and so on. But the most important part is being able to precisely turn the light on and off. If you leave it on all the time, you end up with a bunch of lines where the robot was moving to its next drawing position. This logic is all part of the Python app, and I was able to use the tool connector I/O port on the robot to wire a small LED through the robot's internal wiring, rather than having to tether a wire from the control box to the end of the robot arm. There's a lot more cool stuff we could be doing with this, but it's time for me to get to work on networking and internet in Sarah's van. Until then, how about this one?